At this point, the British had just won the war against the French. They were victorious over France in the 7 Years' War. It says here, known in America as the French and Indian War. So since the English expelled the French from North America, they no longer had that threat, that pressure, whatever. And it says here, with the French defeated, the British government could turn its attention to tightening control over the colonies. It needed revenues to pay for the war and looked to the colonies for that. Also, the colonial trade had become more and more important to the British economy and more profitable. It had amounted to about 500,000 pounds in 1700, but by 1770 was worth about 2.8 million pounds. In other words, the colonies were paying for wars. They were paying for war after war after war, whether it was happening in Europe or it was happening in North America. The people were paying taxes that were funding these wars. Additionally, the merchants and all of these people still had to pay Britain. They still had to give them a portion of their profits. And that is what was helping to establish Britain at that time. It says here, so the American leadership was less in need of English rule, the English more in need of the colonists' wealth. The elements were there for conflict. The war had brought glory to the generals, death to the privates, wealth for the merchants, unemployment for the poor. Remember, at this time, the people, the everyday people, were living in misery, in absolute misery. A newspaper editor wrote about the growing number of beggars and wandering poor in the streets of the city. Letters in the papers questioned the distribution of wealth. It says here, how often have our streets been covered with thousands of barrels of flour for trade, while our near neighbors can hardly procure enough to make a dumpling to satisfy hunger? The people were seeing that the materials for food was around, but that was not for them. It was to be exported and it was to be profitable. Apparently, in the early 1770s, the top 5% of Boston's taxpayers controlled 49% of the city's taxable assets. That is nuts. That's no different than what we're seeing today, clearly. Here, it says court-recorded wills showed that by 1750, the wealthiest people in the cities were leaving 20,000 pounds, equivalent to about $5 million today. We were talking yesterday about the fact that the wealthiest 50 families in Virginia are probably the people who run shit today. Imagine if you inherited $5 million in the 1750s. Those people are still amongst us today. Those are the people passing laws. Those are the people not paying taxes. Those are the people who are, you know what? Let's go to the next video.